Okay, so we now go to the remedies for the NIRC, under NIRC. 202, this is I think nasa ating a provision class. Let's see. For this one, final deed to purchaser, this should have been in the, the three remedies of the government. They can avail of it simultaneously. What? The collection case, the restraint of personal property, and levy of real properties. But let's go to section 203, period of limitation upon assessment and collection. We take note of, or you cross-read that, whenever you read section 203, you cross-read that with section 6A, okay, the last paragraph. Because in section 203, it says here that except as provided in section 222, this is all about the fraud 10 years. The internal revenue taxes shall be assessed within 3 years, okay, after the last day prescribed by law for the filing of the return. So that's section, uh, or you have to correlate that with section 6A, last paragraph. And no proceeding in court without assessment for the collection of such taxes shall be begun after the expiration of such period. That in case where a return is filed beyond the period prescribed by law, the 3-year period shall be counted from the day the return was filed. For purposes of this section, a return filed before the last day prescribed by law for the filing thereof shall be considered as filed on such last day. So in section 6 here, section 6A, last paragraph, the taxpayer has within 3 years to amend, okay, the return, provided that there is no notice yet that is served upon him or her for investigation. So you can amend the return within 3 years, but there should be no notice of audit or investigation. The, what do you call that? The letter of authority, what they call the LOA. So that's on section 203. And as mentioned there in section 203, taxes will be assessed within 3 years. And you correlate this with section 228. Okay, in section 228, this is all about protesting and assessment, because you have this preliminary assessment notice, this one, the pre-assessment notice, PAN, and you have this final assessment notice. We will discuss this later. There are rules here, prescriptive periods. So for section 203, just remember that you have 3 years after the last day to file ITR, income tax return. If ITR is filed beyond the last day, then the 3 years shall commence therefrom. If filed prior to the last day, then 3 years shall commence from such last day. Okay, so just remember that. In section 204, this is the power of the commissioner to compromise, abate, and refund of credit taxes. So the commissioner has the power to compromise. If there is a reasonable doubt on the validity of the claim against the taxpayer, this is what they usually employ. Or when the financial position is, there's a clear inability to pay. But you have to cross-read this with section 6F. You remember the authority of the BIR to inquire into bank deposits. Okay? And 10% of the assessed tax for financial incapacity to pay, you can assess that. 40% for other cases. If amount involved exceeds 1 million, it must be approved by the evaluation board. You have the commissioner and 4 deputies. Okay, if the compromise involves 1 million or exceeds 1 million. And also, the commissioner has the power to abate or cancel tax liability if the taxpayer or the tax appears to be unjustly or excessively assessed. Or this one, the administrative feasibility principle. The administration and collection cost, okay, outweighs the amount due. So the commissioner can abate the tax. And criminal violations may be subject to compromise except if already filed in court. So if it's in the prosecution office, then the commissioner has the power to compromise it. And for those involving fraud, so you must remember that fraud here, this is not the there's a case in section 218 about Pacquiao, or yeah, on the spouse's Pacquiao. We'll discuss that later. And you also have this claim for credit or refund. It must be in writing and within 2 years after the payment of tax or penalty. This is okay. Let's go there. This one, paragraph C of section 204. Okay, you have 2 years whenever there is what tax erroneously or illegally received or penalties imposed without authority. You have 2 years to claim for credit or refund. This is different from you remember the VAT, okay? This section 112 class of VAT, this is different from this section 204 paragraph C. This one, because in section 112, that's all about the VAT, your input tax credit, but this one pertains to all other taxes. And you must remember here, if you get a tax credit certificate, you can use that for any internal revenue tax. I mean, you can offset that with your any tax, excluding, just remember this, withholding taxes. You cannot use that if you're a withholding tax agent and you fail to remit the tax withheld, you withheld from your suppliers or whenever you pay income to a certain professional or a contractor, and you fail to remit that withholding tax, and you have this creditable tax or tax credit certificate, you cannot use that to offset the liability because the liability of a withholding tax agent, as discussed earlier, is different from the taxpayer. Okay, so just remember this section 204. And you also have, as I said, section 205, the remedies for collection. You have this distraint pertains to personal property, levy to real property, and civil or criminal actions. And this may be availed of simultaneously. Okay? But if you levy, you cannot avail of this remedy if tax is not more than 100. So on section 206, you just remember the constructive distraint. The idea here is, the constructive distraint, constructive, like the constructive, you don't have to possess it. If what the taxpayer is retiring from business, or intending to leave the Philippines, or removing or concealing his properties, or obstruct the proceedings of collecting the tax. Section 206. You may memorize this. If in case question asks for when can the commissioner constructively distrain or exercise the power of constructive you the distraint of personal property. So you remember distraint pertains to personal property. And section 207 and 208 requires that the distraint or levy or garnishment be served, okay, upon the taxpayer. This is what happened to the Pacquiao case, which we will discuss later. Advertisement of sale under section 213. You take note of the last paragraph where the collection officer may, upon approval of RDO, okay, advance an amount from his collection to defray the cost of collections. So this is one of the exception, I think, of the technical malversation. You must have an appropriations for that, for you to disburse money, pre-audit or post-audit. But this is a provision in section 213 that gives the power of the BIR to take money out of the collection. Okay, just take note of that. Okay. Next, we will discuss more extensively on section 218 because this might be given in the bar on all about the bond, okay, and the injunction. So that's it for section 202 or 203 to 20213.